Tuesday AMA, thank you so much for tapping in. We have another fantastic one. Adam's going to be out here flexing his Cam Akers bullshit. But of course, you can see we're joined by a guest, and this is a very special guest. Me and Shane Hallam go way back. NCAA 13 Online Dynasty. What's up? Stand up. Shane is a managing partner over at Draft Countdown, one of my favorite websites, has been for a long time, for everything that I want to know, all the mock drafts for upcoming classes. And Shane's a wild man. He's out here doing 2024 mocks already, 7 rounds. I couldn't name you 32 players of the 2024 class, but Shane's got 7 rounds for you. Thank you so much for coming on, Shane. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always fun, to start getting into draft stuff and rookie drafts and all that. Now's the season for a lot of football fans. When your NFL team's out, you turn to your fantasy team or you turn to the draft, right? So here we are.
Yeah, this is what I like to call hope time. You struggle all year on your teams that didn't make the playoffs, so now it's your time. It's Brucey's time to shine. It's Brucey's time to shine.
It's hope season, man. We get to think about all the guys that could be for next year, right? Like all the teams that didn't make it. You got to think about what could be again next year.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think that hope is what drives the. I would say the NFL draft is the only time it's like all 32 teams are locked in. Like the Super Bowl is great, but it's 2 fan bases. This is 32, so that's why I love doing it and breaking down every prospect and doing 7-round mocks for 23 for 24. I even have a 3-round mock for 2025. So with the
let's go
in there. So we're always looking ahead, right? That's the way we do it.
You are a wild man. All right, before we get into all the questions I'm sure you're going to have for Shane, because this is the episode to bring it about future draft classes. This is the guy to talk to. This is the guy who will give you the insight that you need to know. Adam, I'll let you have your 15 seconds of fame or whatever it's called. Go ahead with your Cam Akers shit.
Here, so I'm going to start with one of the comments at the bottom. But, all right. Good thing Adam plays on a lot of BB, otherwise Akers was on his bench. Well, Ryan, if you would have tuned in to start sit, I called it on start sit. RB1 of the week. I definitely didn't say to sit him. I was kind of kidding more so with the RB1 of the week. But he happened to pop off the last 4 weeks, 3 of them, he's playing over 70% of snaps. I know there was a big conversation and a lot of discords about, this was just a perfect game script and all that, but he has actually been getting a lot more run these last 4 weeks. This whole season for Cam Akers, man, is one of these just bizarro seasons, right? I mean, he comes out week 1, relegated to basically nothing. He's in the doghouse. He's playing behind Darrell Henderson, who's currently not playing anywhere. Darrell Henderson can't play. Now he's getting more like featured workload. If he's playing over 70% of snaps, not many guys are doing that. It's just, you don't know what to expect with this guy. I think with him the problem is too, right? It's when you think about Cam Akers, I think everybody has seen moments like this that get you excited, but you've never seen it. Even in college, he had disappointing statistical years, right? Because he's behind that bad O-line. And then you see moments in his rookie year. You get the Achilles tear. You have this. So people are just frustrated and don't know what the hell to do with him. Which is why, Ryan, your point is best. You play best ball. Because when it matters most, he's RB1, top scorer in the league Mike and I played. I think it was a pretty close game, but Cam Akers was pretty much the reason I won. And if we're being honest, it's more luck than anything. But Cam Akers fandom, man, stand up.
So, Adam, I do have him on one lineup team that isn't in the championship. Did make it. One of my few lineup teams that I actually give a shit about still at this point. I'm going to ask you, man. It's a 14-team start 9.
Okay.
And I got to make the decision about Cam Akers. Am I starting him this week? You're the soothsayer. The other options are Kenneth Walker, Najee Harris, and my guy, Antonio Gibson. Now, I think I can pretty much rule out Gibson because Washington hates him.
Yep.
Washington hates him, so he'll be sitting on the bench for sure. But am I going to start Cam?
I think you got to, man. Those are 2 good options, though. Kenneth Walker hasn't been quite this RB1 overall in Dynasty that people were talking about earlier lately, but I don't know if you can get all. Can you get all 3 of them in? Can you play Akers or one of these guys in the flex?
2 running back spot, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. Now, the other options, if I don't go running back, would be like Ayuk, who's been on an absolute heater.
Yeah.
I love, or Jerry Jeudy, again, another guy who's kind of been, there's been some good things to go with him. I'm probably gonna end up having to play Russell fucking Wilson in my Superflex spot, which is surprising that this team has made it to the championship with how bad he's played. But there is that little bit of appeal. Like, who do you play, the Russ Judy stack if Russ is actually suiting up and not just gonna sit on the bench for the rest of the year? But I think, Adam, just looking at it now, as much as I dunk on Cam Akers, I like to give you shit about it. Like, I think he's the best running back I have. Best matchup, anyways, right? Kenneth Walker gets the Jets. Najee gets Baltimore.
I think that was the next point. You're right. Like, you're playing the Chargers, and it's been one of the better matchups for somebody on paper. So I think you got to roll with the hot hand, man.
Zach Moss had a decent enough game against the Chargers.
Exactly. Shane, I know we want to get to you on 2023 class, but like, what are your thoughts on Cam Akers right now?
Look, I think he's fully recovered, right? Like, I think this is what we were waiting for when he came back way too early from the Achilles, and this year was still kind of rough. And we're like, oh, he's cooked. But maybe he just needed this time. Like, now that we're, over, we were almost 2 years, approaching 2 years out, I think he just needed that time. So I'd start him over Ken Walker. I think I'd probably start Akers and Najee and Ayuk and go that way. Yeah, I it wouldn't surprise me if I think he'll be an RB1 this week. I think he'll be a top 12 running back this week.
I like it, man. You guys are going to help me to a championship. There's a longtime listener. I don't know if he's in here tonight, but Kevin Bach, who joins all the time, gives us lots of support. I face him this week, so you're going down, K-Bach. It's over.
Uh-oh. K-Bach. It's time to be from longtime listener to your foe for 1 week. We appreciate it. Senior Long Johnson says, our start sit advice, Mike. Told him to sit Amari Cooper because of the weather and play Cam Akers. Ryan, it's not just me that's playing him. See, we got other people playing him.
He was on my bench in that team that made it to the championship.
Well, I told people to play him. And what Mike decides to do with that advice is on his own accord. We got a question here, but I do want to get to a lot of Shane's 23 class. So, Shane, here we're going to read this one. Hey, y'all, stuck at work, but wanted to throw this question in. He just listened to Scott Connor. RBs we draft in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, etc. How long should we hold before dropping? Should it be the full season? Continued here, we have he drafted Bam Knight. Dropped him week 6. Someone picked him up for free, and I lost the chance to cash out on him later in the season. How long is too long to hold these RBs? Thanks, y'all. So, Shane, I'll let you start off with this one. What's your take on this?
Yeah, look, I think you need to – it's a little case-by-case basis, right? But I would at least hold, if possible, roster-wise, through year 2. And I think if you get nothing in 2 years, then, you know that nothing's probably going to happen. It's rare that's going to happen. So, when you're taking these shots on these running backs – you want to see it. You drafted a Zamir White right in round 3 of your rookie draft. He did nothing this year. Josh Jacobs is the guy. And you might, the Raiders might draft someone. You might go to next year and be like, he's a dead asset. And an injury happens. And now Zamir White's the starter for an NFL team. And he's going to recoup that value. So I think if you just get too trigger happy and cutting these players and kind of trying to churn that roster, you can miss out on that kind of value. Now, if a guy was undrafted like Bam Knight, I don't blame you for that one. I think the rarity of those players end up having an impact, and he's probably going to turn back into a pumpkin, next year, and we might not hear too much from him again. It happens. But I try to hold through year 2 as long as I can just to see if something happens. Unless you have a Trey Sermon situation where the guy gets cut, I think you got to at least give him one more, that second year chance to see if they can do anything.
I will say this: the biggest issue here is lineup versus best ball for me. In the best ball leagues, I generally don't want these guys in the first place, but if I do draft them, you best believe by week 4, if they haven't done anything for me, they're hitting the road. If there's no path to them playing and actually putting points on, they're just guaranteed zeros for me. Even a Bam Knight, he would have been a cut for me, where I tend to pick up those long shot wide receivers. Think about the Quez Watkins types. That guy can have a week at any given point where he scores 2 long touchdowns and is in your lineup and is doing something for you. So it's almost flipped on its head, where in lineup, you like Scott talks about, you don't want those roster clogging wide receivers that you're never going to start Quez Watkins and feel good about it. You're never going to put him in your wide receiver 3 spot or a flex spot and feel good about it. Whereas you can take these running backs like Bam Knight and hold them for the majority of the year until they actually show you something where they're getting work and Bam Knight's starting this week, or you need a spot start from them and you can use them. So in lineup, I'm with Shane. Like, up to 2 years, like, I'm good holding them. And if you're not good holding them for up to 2 years to see if you see anything from these running backs, then don't draft them. Don't waste the roster spot. It's kind of like the tight end position where we get so excited for these rookies and third, fourth, fifth round, and then we get disappointed by like week 6 when they're not doing anything. This is a Hunter Long situation. It's like, it takes time sometimes for these guys. Wide receivers, on the other hand, in lineup leagues, like, if they don't do anything by like week 8, like Jalen Tolbert's a prime example. Like, the guy can't even get active on game day. Can't beat out a Noah Brown. Can't beat out a Turpin who plays special teams. Like, at some point, you just got to go, like, it's never going to happen for this dude. I'm never going to push the button on this guy, and you just get rid of him. Running backs, I'm with you, Shane, man. Like, I'll hold him up to 2 years, I think, is a good spot for him.
Yeah, and I think to wrap a bow on it, right, like, for example, this year, right, and I think this is what happens for people is, we're talking Zamir White. It's a great case, like Shane brought it up, right? Like, TDP is another guy in that range, right? Tyron Davis-Price. These are guys were being drafted in the same vicinity as Brian Robinson was, Tyler Algier was. Sometimes, depending on when you drafted, Dameon Pierce, right? So you see those other guys going out and getting work early and thriving, and you get ready to hit the panic button on this guy because he's not playing well. In lineup leagues, that's why you have a taxi. Stash him. The worst thing you can do is get rid of him at bottom dollar. In best ball, I think it totally depends on your direction. In 4D, we talk about direction. I think the big part here is, what is your direction? If you're contending, you don't want to roster a lot of these zero types. So hopefully you can move Zamir White before the value really craters. If you can't, you may end up having to cut because you don't want to roster a bunch of the zeros. But if you're rebuilding and Zamir White doesn't pop, that's actually the time I want to keep him. You can sit on my bench and be one of these guys that doesn't score points because I'm looking to go get a top pick. I think that'd be the 3 different ways I answer that question. I think that was a great question, though, Ty, because I think that's something we don't think about enough, and that's something everybody kind of wants to know.
For sure.
Look, and I'll say, too, like, preseason's big, right? If Zamir White pops in preseason, now I'm putting him on the trade block because
100%.
now I can get the value back at least, if not more. And if he flops, he flops. If he hits, I still probably made value out of it. It works out. And, just real quick, talking about 23 draft, the running back position is so deep. I think we could have upwards of a dozen guys go in the first 2 days of the draft. I think more NFL teams are going to be moving to 2 running back sets, using 2 guys. So, in terms of like situations and trying to assess those, it's going to get tough, I think, to really know what's a good situation for a running back to be in, and you might miss assess.
Yeah, 1,000%, man. You already know it, Tunchi. He says Mike Adam and the Legends, so I guess the Legends is Shane today. Tunchi, yeah, I'm rocking the Akers jersey. You thought it was just a thumbnail? Come on, baby. I was coming strong with the jersey after RB1 of the week. So I think I'm looking here. There's some other questions, but I don't know, Shane, if you wanted to start talking 23 some before we continue to keep getting into some of these other questions, or if you want to keep going on questions.
No, we keep doing questions, and whenever you want to transition, I'm down.
All right, sounds good. We got a few more questions, but we'll definitely get some more 23 talk. Joey Cheese Sticks, what's up, man? Superflex lineup. I have most of the capital in the upcoming draft. Okay, there you go. So Shane, this is the question for you right here. Getting CD for 2 late first and a 24 seconds. That's a smash, right? I have the 102 and 105 with 6 seconds, ready to compete next year. The only thing I'm not seeing here, Joey, is this best baller lineup. I think that would be a difference maker for me. But
right at the beginning, man, reading is fundamental.
Yep. Oh, so lineup. Sorry. See, I'm out here tripping. So Shane, there you go. It's a lineup league. Would you trade 2 first and a second for CD Lamb?
Yeah, I think 2 late first. It's a smash accept. I think in a super flex, you really have a top 4 right now, the 2 quarterbacks, the top 2 running backs, and then the top 3 receivers are kind of in that mix with Will Levis tossed in where you want to take a bust quarterback. So I think if you can, at late first, you're not really getting much value. I don't think it's much different than a late second, to be honest with you, in this draft. So I would move that for CD Lamb, get an elite, top 10 receiver, potential top 5 receiver. Yeah, I think you make that move on with the 102 and 105. You can draft a quarterback. You can build that super flex position pretty well.
Man, I like the deal too. Like I'm usually opposed to like trading for players now. You know what I mean? Because you assume all the risk, right? You don't assume any of the risk on the draft picks. The draft pick itself can't get hurt.
Correct.
Maybe the player who's going in that spot gets hurt, and then the next guy takes his place. But CeeDee Lamb could get hurt. Man, if I'm ready to compete though next year, I kind of do just want to lock up a top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty right now, especially for too late first, 24 second. You can have it. I don't mind that too, especially if I have other draft capital to go. Like he's got the 102 and the 105 with all those seconds. Like he has multiple pivot options in case CD does get hurt. Maybe he packages a hurt CD with one of those picks and gets to a Jefferson or a Chase or an AJ Brown or whatever the hell he wants to do. So I don't hate that at all. Adam, I actually think this is one of the rare situations where I go like, yeah, you take these picks right now. Generally, I want to hold till draft time, till people get that rookie fever and that hype, and they think the 111 is going to win them their league, and it very well may in the long run. But people generally get too overworked for it. I think I just do that now. Like that's good enough for me just to send them away.
Yeah, I think the thing too is that if you are sure that your window really is to push in this year, and you've hoarded all these picks, and now's the time. So 111, yeah, like that's where Justin Jefferson was drafted, but that's in a different class. When we look at 2023, right, you're not going to likely, it's anything's possible, but you're not likely drafting in the back end of round 1 a difference-making type receiver, and I guess this is where we'll confirm this with Shane. But I think if you need help at receiver position and you want to go lock up a stud, this is kind of why you do hoard the picks, is that you can make a move here where – like 111, those receivers, you're going to have running backs to draft back there, but you're going to be outside of that top 4 range of quarterback. You're going to be drafting kind of what you can still draft with those seconds in the running back. So I think when I look at the way the draft's going to shake out and you wanting to compete now, I think that's a great move. It's probably, Mike and I don't like paying much more than this for a receiver at all, but if you can get CD, who's truly a top 5 and youthful wide receiver for this price, I'm in lineup especially.
And I would say, look, maybe with one of those late first, like the next Justin Jefferson is there. Are you going to take him? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had a league where I was trying desperately to trade up 1 pick for Jerry Jeudy. I mean, I was trying so hard, and you wouldn't do it. And I got stuck with Justin Jefferson. I was like, man, Well, so like that can happen. Yep. So trade the picks for CeeDee Lamb. You know what you're getting, because you might not take the guy anyway.
I'm with you, man. I think that you do it here.
You touched on a little bit earlier, Shane, too, about this running back class, and I think we all kind of have been conditioned to think that the running back class is going to be pretty good. I did my initial set of rookie rankings. Now, these are going to vastly change on people going back to school, officially declaring for the draft, combine, all the hype and everything that goes out, plus all the work that you're doing with your mock drafts where you're kind of feeling out what these teams actually need and where they're going to go. But I had 13 running. I couldn't believe this. I had 13 running backs in my top 24 selections, like 13 guys and only 6 receivers. And 3 of those receivers are like second round guys where I'm just like, they got to fit in here somewhere. I don't know if they're going to be good or not. Does that feel right to you? Like is it really damn near 13 running backs who have the possibility of being first or second round rookie picks this year?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be awfully close to that. And like you said, I think a couple of those guys are going to go back to school. But still, if we're talking 9 or 10, I mean that's still an absurd amount of running backs to go that high. Because you need both. You need the talent, but we also need the draft capital. And when I look at the NFL, I see maybe 5 teams out of 32 that I'm like, wow, they definitely will not take a running back day 2. That's not many. I think there are a lot of teams that could take a running back in day 2. And that means I think that a lot of these running backs are going to go second, third round, where to me that's a sweet spot where you want to draft these guys in the second round of your rookie drafts if they're going in the top 100. So, yeah, I mean it's here. I think that's darn close. And, ultimately I think there are going to be some receivers this offseason that move up and we feel much better about than we do right now. A lot of talented, athletic players, but this running back class is super athletic. We have multiple running backs in the 4.2s, low 4.3s at the combine. Like it's a good group. So I think it is something to keep in mind where these dart throws on running backs. I think it's going to be a good year for it.
So your most recent mock draft that you have, go check that out, people. DraftCountdown.com. Shane did a 7-round 23 mock. You have 2 running backs in the first round of the NFL draft. We all kind of knew Bijan Robinson, but who was the second? You want to spoil it here for the people?
Yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back from Alabama, I think is gonna go in the first at this point. If he decides to work out, he's gonna work out really well. Was a 5-star recruit going in Georgia Tech, transferred to Bama. By far, to me, the best pass catching running back in this draft. That's been his bread and butter. If he hits 200 pounds at the combine, then all systems go. I think he can go even 20 to 25 in the first round. I think is a possibility for him. So, I think him and Bijan in a 1 quarterback league, I think it's a 1-on-1 and 1-on-2 for sure.
Easily in a 1 QB league, no question about it. As far as the wide receivers go, I'm looking at it. You got Quentin Johnson, first wide receiver off the board, 12. Is that correct? Did I miss?
Yeah, from TCU.
Yep. And then Michael Mayer. This is going to be a good one here. We got to have this conversation about Michael Mayer. What is your opinion of Michael Mayer? Like originally we're all thinking like the baby Gronk comps, and you saw him all over Twitter, all out there. And then it kind of started to creep in that maybe he's not athletic enough to be a difference maker at tight end. But obviously NFL teams love him. You're not the only one who mocks him in the first round very comfortably. Kuiper, McShay, all the big talking heads also have Michael Mayer as tight end 1 off the board and a first round selection, no question about it. What do you see from a fantasy perspective, though, that we can kind of take away with Michael Mayer? You got him going 14 right now.
Well, the key is we're never going to know. So he's not running. He's not. I'll be really surprised if he goes through
if he does anything.
The full athletic testing. Now, Pat Frymuth had an injury, but I think it's similar where we didn't have that for him. And you're like, wow, people are knocking him down because we think he's not athletic, but he's catching the football. I think Michael Mayer is going to be a similar tight end to Pat Frymuth. You can decide where you want to take that. I think, in a tight end premium, I wish I had Pat Frymuth on more teams when he's catching, 7 passes. I know it's not consistent at this point, but I think it'll get there. I think Michael Mayer is that type of player because he's done it from day one. He was 18 years old, and he was clowning these linebackers that are in the NFL right now. So to me, that's always a flashing light to me. Like, okay, this guy can play when you're doing it, day 1, game 1 as a true freshman. Does that always translate into fantasy numbers? It doesn't. I'm sure, he could be more like a Mercedes Lewis, more like, Frymuth, you're blocking a lot, but he's going to be on the field for almost every snap. I think he's going to get drafted in the top 20. I think top 15 is very possible. And I just don't think you can ignore that draft capital. And a tight end premium, I mean, I'm going to be looking at him in the middle of the first round. And I think not tight end premium, that 1-2 turn.
So I'm a big Iowa fan. So I got to ask you, on the scale of Noah Fant to TJ Hawkinson, where would Michael Mayer rank for you?
Yeah, look, it's tough because I think he is more like Hawkinson as kind of a two-way player. I think Fant was more athletic and just has been kind of dumped in these bad situations time and time again. So I still like Noah Fant. But I think Mayer lines up with Hawkinson. He's probably a little bit less athletic, but has a little more range, a little more dynamic catch radius than Hawkinson did coming into the league. Hawkinson was kind of a one-year wonder in a lot of ways. Mayer's been doing it for a while. So I think it's similar vein to that. He's similar to Cole Kmet, but is, I think, more athletic and has a much higher football IQ to find the hole in the zone. I mean, the Notre Dame has taken a lot from like the Chiefs offense. You see, and even the old Dallas offense, you see Michael Mayer doing a lot of Jason Witten kind of things, the stick route and feeling out the defense and zone coverage. If an offensive coordinator uses them correctly, I think there's big PPR possibilities there.
All right. I'm back in on Michael Mayer, Adam.
I mean,
moving him up.
Listen, I think Michael Mayer, and like you talked about, I see all the different scenarios. For me, though, I think the problem, especially knowing if he doesn't run, and I don't have an idea of his athletic measurables, and his resume is going to be great, right? The name's going to be great. Where he probably goes in mocks and where he's going to go in your rookie drafts, I think, is where it's going to be hard for me, I think, to take him. As much as I like it, it's just I think there's going to be other guys I may shoot my shot on. But ultimately, it's going to come down to cost. I mean, there's going to be a point I'll take Mayer if enough guys go off the board. I think it's just a matter of how many guys go off the board on him, ahead of him in Superflex. So
I like it, man.
Yep.
I like it. He had another good one here that Jackson Smith-Njigba still a first round. We're kind of hearing some rumblings or some talking heads. You know, he's not going to be a first round. He quit on his team, all that. I throw that out the window. I still have JSN as my number one wide receiver, right or wrong, until proven differently. Where are you at with Jackson Smith-Njigba? Do you think he's got the athleticism to play? Is he just a slot receiver? Does it even matter if he's just a slot receiver, Shane? Like, what did you see when you look at JSN?
I don't think he's just a slot receiver. I think we would have seen a little bit more of that outside look this year had he played. It's a tough evaluation because last year was one of the best single years of a receiver that I can remember, especially when you add in that he was playing with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who both look fantastic in the NFL, and he was outproducing them. So if that's the case, to me, I'm still in. He's still my wide receiver one. He's not going to be the first receiver off the board. And maybe he works out and it's disappointing. And I'm like, well, I got to drop him now. That is, my fear. But if he comes out and runs, a 4.45 and the quickness testing's good, like, how do you not take that guy in the first round after a 1,600-yard season? I think someone, that bottom end of the first round, I haven't gone to the Giants in this mock draft, but look at the Giants or the Cowboys or even the Vikings, like teams that need receivers. I don't know how you passed on him late in the first.
And the last one I got here when I was looking at it, Adam, you're going to love this because it brings up 2 points for us. Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt in the first round to the Baltimore Ravens. Not only I'm a fan of Jalen Hyatt, I like his game. I also rank him a lot higher than I think most people do. But also the Baltimore Ravens are an interesting one because they're so devoid of weapons. We are huge Rashad Bateman fans on this show, and we've been just disappointed. Like, it's always missing something, whether it's not playing enough snaps, not running enough routes, or just being injured. Explain the Jalen Hyatt pick, a little bit about Jalen Hyatt, and then the fit with the Baltimore. Like what you saw there when you pushed the button and put Jalen Hyatt at the Baltimore Ravens.
I think you have a player who could run in the 4.2s, and we saw that against Alabama. Like, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but if he runs 4.32 40 at the combine, right?
It's a 4.2. No one cares. Yeah. It's a 4.2. We just
right, he's going to be one of the fastest receivers, and it shows up on film. I almost don't care what the 40 time is because I think he is that fast and can get behind a defense. I think he's going to be this year's, Kadarius Toney or Jahan Dotson, where I think a lot of people will be lower on Hyatt because they'll be, he's just a deep threat or he's, he's smaller or whatever. But he's a third-year player. Those guys were older, and I think that's the key with Jalen Hyatt is he actually had a pretty good true freshman season. People forget about, and then he came out this year when Cedric Tillman was out and blew up. So I think Hyatt can be Jameson Williams. What we kind of are expecting from him. I think it could be a similar situation where he's going to be at the bottom of that wide receiver tier, but late first of your rookie drafts, going to say, let me take a chance on this guy. And it wouldn't surprise me if he gets taken above JSN or gets taken above Jordan Addison if a team really falls in love with the upside.
Man, I love to hear that, Adam. As soon as he made the JMO comp, I'm thinking like JMO without the knee injury.
Right. Had JMO not tore it,
This is how A and I would have been on JMO if he not tore his ACL.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hyatt absolutely has those vibes too, where he didn't. Now he's leaving this year, but he didn't really break out till later, right? You didn't see much in his first 2 years of college, and then I think the speed. It will be interesting to see his 40 time, but clearly when you watch him, it's a 6'3", I don't know, what do you think, 215, 220 guy, right? That can blaze. Like that's what you chase, honestly. Like where you're probably going to be able to draft him, that's the type of guy you want to chase. Is that type of athleticism, personally. The other thing I think we have to keep in mind with Jackson Smith-Njigba, it's polarizing, I think, for people because of this year, him not playing, a lot of that stuff. But, like, keep in mind, right, Chris Olave, part of the reason I was a staunch anti-Chris Olave guy, even when Jay Rich is trying to talk me out of it, in his senior season, right, he only has 900 yards, and a lot of that is because Jackson Smith-Njigba in his sophomore year has 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. Like, he outproduced Chris Olave, who's smashing in the NFL during his senior year. I know they're not playing in the same spot, but we haven't seen Jackson Smith-Njigba play this year. But the last time he played, he was on the field with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and really smashed. So say what you will or not, but that's probably a guy worth shooting your shot on just because of that type of upside.
Boom. I love it, man. Let's get some more questions, too. Also, Shane, just be thinking about how to close the show out. We're going to need a sleeper, like your favorite guy.
Yeah,
in
man.
there.
Oh, sure.
Love that.
I got it. I'm ready. Yeah.
You remember a couple years ago when I'm sitting there and I'm tweeting you like, hey, where's Antonio Gibson on your ranks, man? It worked out for a little bit for me and then, just not. We're not going to talk about lately. But, hey, for a year or two, Antonio Gibson was the guy. Ooh, we got one for Patty Mills. Patty's got the 101, 106, 107, 109, 110, 112, and 203 in a one quarterback. Owns most of the draft. Looking to win the league this week. What do I do with the picks? Sit on until the draft, then move up to win the league this week? Like, are you in the championship?
So he's in the
game,
championship.
Patty?
He's trying to win the league. So, Patty, I mean, are you trying to move some of these picks? Can you trade in season? Like, are you still allowed to trade in the playoffs here? I mean,
because if you are, man,
cost dependent, I'm willing to do that. Yes,
I'm willing to mortgage the future for a championship right now.
But I think the
that's
thing
an
is,
option.
I think what's great about your leverage here is now you are giving up leverage, but I don't think you have to mortgage the whole future. You could mortgage a couple, 2 or 3 of these if it's the case. So
even right now, Adam, the haul you get for that 101 in a 1 QB league with Bijan, like.
Okay, this is what I was actually guessing. So here, Mike, real quick, he cannot trade right now. So what he's asking is, do you ride this leverage out, or do you try to trade right away? I think unless someone makes you an offer you can't refuse, I'm letting the prospects and all that play out. I'm letting Shane talk up all these guys and get the value way up, right, through the roof, and then I'll trade you. But I don't know, Mike and Shane, what are your thoughts?
I'm where I'm at, man. I'm holding the picks up until the NFL draft or to my rookie draft. Like the pick doesn't go down until you actually hit the button on it. And then people's feelings about the player you selected come into play, and then they devalue it a little bit. But all that time, Combine, Senior Bowl, doesn't matter, all of that stuff, NFL draft just keeps building and building and building and building hype. And no matter how bad the class is, we did it with 2022, all of a sudden we're like, oh, yeah, I can get pretty excited about Jahan Dotson, rightfully so. I can get excited about George Pickens. I can get excited about Jameson Williams. So you hold those picks. You diamond hand the piss out of them unless, like the previous question, I'm ready to win next year. Somebody sends me an offer for a couple of these late ones, and I can get a stud player in CeeDee Lamb. And then it's like, well, this is too good to say no to. Here you go.
Yep.
Yeah, there always can be value, but picks generally have the most value during the draft, right? Like Michael said, that's usually what happens. I wouldn't trade the 101. It would take way too much, I think, because I think Bijan's going to be the one asset that is going to increase in value after the rookie draft because I think he's going to be the RB1 in Dynasty. I mean, after the season, I'm going to be trying to trade my Jonathan Taylor shares for the 101. I think so. But I think the rest, like you said, if you can package a bunch of those to get an elite player when you already have a good team, you could try. Like, I don't mind trying it during the offseason. Don't not make trade offers, but don't sell yourself short until the draft is on.
Yeah, that's a good point too, especially in one quarterback. If you could package the later ones up to go get a stud and utilize your leverage properly, I'm all for that. But typically, I'm going to hold these picks until they accrue their peak value up and right around the point of the draft.
Depending on your team, I mean, I might even offer up the 110, the 112, the 203 for the 102. Trade like a bunch of picks and boom, Bijan, Gibbs, running backs done for a couple years. I'm good.
That's a good point too, and especially in a one quarterback lineup league like this, consolidation can work out in that scenario. So here, Ryan C asked a question, all right, and he says, same offense, can we trust Higbee again? Are we seeing, Mike and Shane, a 2019 version of Tyler Higbee when he won people fantasy championships back then? Are we seeing that? And are we playing him? Are we trusting him?
To my dismay, man, Ben Mason got me in Bomb Squad because of Tyler Higbee.
Made that trade, man, right?
Some of these other turds. Man, I didn't think we'd ever see Tyler Higbee again. That offensive line has been bad. They've been playing really well as of late, though, right? Cam Akers has had an explosion. They're not having to have Tyler Higbee stay in and block. Baker, like it or not, has actually been kind of a shot in the arm for that offense. Like, Matt Stafford could not look this good through an entire year with Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson. And those guys leave. Matt Stafford's on injured reserve, probably not playing the rest of the year. Maybe retires, does whatever. Cooper Kupp's not coming back. And all of a sudden, Tyler Higbee goes from like having to be the sixth offensive lineman to now out there running all the routes and catching all the passes as the only weapon. And teams still can't stop him. This might be a league-winning tight end, and it's gross as shit to say, but if you got Tyler Higbee, congratulations. And can you trust him again for 2022 for the rest of the year? So for week 17, I would say yes. Going forward, that Rams team is going to be really bad for a while. So, no.
Yeah, I think it's situation dependent. And this reminds me, Shane and Mike, of when Sean McVay had it with Jared Goff, right? Right before they made the trade for Matthew Stafford, if you remember. And this is part of why Cooper Kupp was polarizing. He went away from a lot of these sets he was running and was doing a bunch of 12 and heavy personnel packages, right? Because right now they are void of everything. They got no receivers that matter. They got Tyler Higbee, and they're just trying to just maul people and use Baker Mayfield. So Tyler Higbee's like the top pass-catching option. They're playing heavy personnel packages where he's on the field a lot. Like, I think him and Cam Akers are the two people, obviously Baker in like best ball leagues, but are the guys that are going to actually matter in this offense. I don't want anyone else. I think right now, unless you have, a top-tier tight end, a Kittle type, someone like that, he's absolutely worth lineup consideration for the championship. He's got you there. I mean, if you played him, he got you there. So, Shane, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm still not going to play him over the disappointing top. Like, I'll still play Mark Andrews over him. And, I know how bad Mark Andrews has been, but, like, I'm not going to bench him for Tyler Higbee. But, yeah, I mean, if you're in the championship, you probably had to play Higbee last week, and it worked out for you. But I mean, honestly, last week's it feels like he's been doing this for a couple weeks. But really, last week's it. I mean, he got a touchdown 2 weeks ago,
right.
4 for 27 and touchdowns. Good for tight end because we have none in fantasy, but like it's not that good, right? So I think you play him if you have to, and yeah, he probably won't do what he did last week, but could you get 4 for 40 yards and a touchdown and end up with 12, 13 points? I think that's what you want.
Yeah, and I think you got to remember too, they had the short week where Baker played, right? Didn't start and played, but since then, like I've seen a lot more Higbee on the field than in some of these weeks past. I think that's why I'm hopeful. But to your point, there's not a lock he's getting 11 targets again. So you trust him over guys that are iffy, but you're not going to play him over the studs. We're on the same page. Jay, all right.
What was crazy? What was absolutely crazy though?
Go ahead.
He ran 27 routes. Right? He only stayed in the block on 1.
Right, correct.
27 out of 28, the guy's out there running route, which is wild because he had been, hovering around 60%. Shit, it's been bad as 40, 50% on the year. Even 2 weeks ago, like Shane was talking about, it was in 60% range. Like it was better than it had been, but it still wasn't great. This last week, 96%. He's just out there. If it's a pass play, he's running around. I'm not staying in the block, which was pretty good to see. And they needed it because they don't have anybody else. Period.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, so Jay, back to Cam Akers, gentlemen. So, do we flip Cam Akers if he finishes the season strong? I had a conversation with Blitzing Buzzard, actually, in Barry's Discord a little bit about this. So, I guess here's, I think, the way this question should really be phrased. First and foremost, Jay, any person outside of rare scenarios, I'm going to try to trade if the value is correct. So, I think the real question here is, what is the value point to where you're willing to say, going into year 4 Cam Akers, I will move him?
I'll move him for 23 first.
Easy. I'm with you there.
Right.
And I love Akers, man. I love Akers. But I think I would do it there in this class. Mike, what say you?
Just any 23 first makes it hard. Like, if I think about it, I can re-roll into a... And it's got to be...
I can re-roll into a guy without an Achilles injury. That's what I can re-roll into.
That's true.
So here's... All right, let me give you kind of what I had the conversation with. So Blitzing buzzer was a little stronger. He's like, I'll just re-roll, and if I can get a second. I'm like, I'm not doing it for a second. Now, if you can give me a 201, 202, 203 type, which essentially value-wise what this class is similar to a first, I can understand why you're doing it, because there you can re-roll for a running back prospect that has a decent profile, and you're getting a young asset. Where Akers is going into year 4, he has a torn Achilles. Truthfully, he's super polarizing. Like right now, you have the truthers all excited, and you have people that are Cam Akers staunch, like anti-Cam Akers. They're pissed off right now because he just won people leagues if you played him. I think I would do it really, like Shane says, if I can get into the first round, early second, I would think about it. I'm not even sure that I would do it for sure in the early second. I just think that's kind of the spot where I think I'd consider it. And it kind of depends on what my team is, if I'm contending, and what I plan to do with that player. But Mike, saying that, what do you think?
The reason I have such a problem with it, man, like, so I went through and I actually sat down and tried to do, like, how I'd rank the rookies. Now, I'm not the greatest at ranking rookies, right? This is why I rely on resources like Shane. It's why I rely on resources like Ray, really other smart people in the prospect evaluation. But me, just initially, if I'm looking at it, because I want to get a sense of value, like where I'm at. So if you're talking Cam Akers for a late 23 first, right? We just throw out the late part. Because I'm in full agreement, man. Like, I will take Jordan Addison, Michael Mayer, Quentin Johnson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Jahmyr Gibbs, all 4 fucking quarterbacks before I will take Cam Akers. Like, I'd rather have those guys. I feel better about those assets. But when I look at it and I go, Tank Bigsby or Roshan Johnson, Sean Tucker, Zach Evans, Mayan Williams, Zach Charbonnet, Kendra Miller. I know Mayan Williams probably stands out as a little bit higher. I'm a big Mayan Williams fan, so I can't not rank him as high as I do. But I look at some of those guys: Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, Blake Corum, Devin Achane, Chase Brown, Dwayne McBride, and then Cedric Tillman. Like, that rounds out the 111 through the entire second round. If I look at those guys, man, I don't have very many arguments where I go, like, I feel good enough about this prospect right now to trade them 1-for-1 for Cam Akers, a guy who's in the NFL, who has a starting running back job, and like you alluded to earlier, Adam, as much as I want to give you shit for it, is commanding touches and commanding most of the backfield, and the Rams don't have a lot of draft capital to go out and replace him. And even if they're a bad team last year, this is what we fought back with people who dunked on Kenneth Walker so much. It really doesn't matter if you're a bad team. If you're getting all the touches, man, we've seen running backs on bad teams finish very strongly in fantasy, and I can't just let a guy go for, a re-roll into something that I'm not completely comfortable with. Now, will the NFL draft process make me higher or make me more hyped for some of these guys? Absolutely. Tank Bigsby comes out and runs a 4.4, weighs in at damn near 215, 220 pounds. I'm going to get excited for him. He gets the draft capital and goes somewhere good, then it's a different discussion. But if we're talking about right now flipping him 1-for-1 for the 110, the 111, the 112, I don't feel great about it. Like, I just really don't. I'd rather hold on to Cam for a little bit longer and see what happens. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, sorry. Now, look, the Rams have 12 picks in this draft. They're going to. It's more than people think. Yeah, they don't have a first, but that's about all they're missing, and they have a lot of multiple picks in day 3. When we're sitting here in May, and your rookie drafts are starting, what are the odds that they drafted a running back in round 2, round 3, round 4, early round 4? I think it's decently high. I mean, they don't have anyone now with Darrell Henderson gone, right? That's Kyron Williams, who they drafted in the 5th. So, yeah, the list you read, Mike, I think is iffy right now. But if they draft Devin Achane in the early 3rd, I'd rather have him than Cam Akers. Why? I think that becomes the question now. So, and either way, Cam Akers is losing value if they do draft someone. Now, you're playing the game. Maybe they don't. Maybe they sign somebody. Like, I think the Rams are going to do something at running back, and Cam Akers' value is going to drop when that happens.
Interesting. All right, so I would say if they do draft one, that you make a good point. Here would be my pushback, all right? And this, I think, is with Cam Akers where it's kind of polarizing. I think T-Rock, alluded to this. Let me pull it up. No one's paying a 23 first. You're probably right. No one's paying a 23 first, I don't think. It's probably the early second that's really a conversation. For me, I'm probably comfortable holding. Here's the thing with Cam Akers, right? We had an entire season we missed with him, with the Achilles, right? And we think say whatever you want to about him. His 2020 rookie season and 2022 third-year season coming off the Achilles are going to look a lot alike, right? He's not playing a bunch, and he's frustrating the hell out of people that spent whatever they spent on him. And then he's going to help them win championships possibly in both years. The question you have to ask yourself is, what does the road look like? Shane, last year they drafted Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams was supposedly the guy they're going to use this year. Kyren Williams comes back from his injury. Where did he put Cam Akers off the field? Right? Like, the question I think is this: will he play the snaps? Because here's the thing with Cam Akers. If you look at both years, when he's played 60% of snaps or more, dude's an RB2 at minimum. Every week. Every single week. The question is really this: year 4 running back Achilles, are you willing to trust that he's going to get the touches and that there's not going to be someone else in the backfield, to Shane's point? I think it's polarizing, man. I think I can see a scenario on both sides. I can see him smash if they gave him a work for full year, and if he's healthy. And now, like, think about this. This is a guy that they wouldn't trade. At the deadline, they cut Darrell Henderson. Like, I don't know that they're for sure out on Cam Akers either. So I think it's a tough one to truly evaluate, and I think this is going to be – some people are going to be like, yeah, man, just trade him. If you can get an early second, get off of him. And I think some people that are truthers like myself are like, I'm willing to see what happens. So I think it's kind of polarizing, personally.
I think the easiest answer for me is it just depends on what my team's going to be in 2023.
That's a good point, too. Yep.
If I'm trying to build something that's going to compete and put points on the field, I'll take Cam Akers over the pick. You can keep your early 20s, that may and probably will miss and will be spotty on him, and some will hit and some will miss, but majority, I don't like to rely on rookies to build contenders. I'll take the Cam Akers. But if I'm rebuilding, like 100%, man, like if I'm on a rebuilding team, let me get off of an asset that's, I don't know about it, and let me get into something that people will get hyped about. I mean, look at the people with Rachaad White being hyped about it and valuing him at a level that is not commensurate with what he's actually producing. Yes, he occasionally gets in the end zone, but whenever Leonard Fournette is on the field, that's the guy who's getting the most of the touches. That's the guy who's on there in the critical downs. That's the guy who's catching the passes, even though that's Rachaad White's calling card, which is very strange. So it's kind of like this Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery thing. Like, as long as the old crusty dude is there actually scoring points, that's the one that's going to help you win championships. The other one, not so much. So we got one from Dynasty Alex. When should we be drafting for need in rookie draft and go away from drafting the guy that has the hype, the community values higher than they need to be? All right, Shane, how about this one? When do you draft for need, or when do you just draft straight for value?
I'm generally a value guy. I mean, my Devy Marketplace podcast, that's what we focus on, right? It's about maximizing value. If I can draft a player with a better value, I can trade him for my need. And that's better for me than reaching down for a need. Now, if I'm like some of the other questions where I have 5 first-round picks or 6 first-round picks, or you have a ton of these early picks, then I think you can play the game with, I want a little more running back than receiver to help me, or vice versa. I think you can play that a little bit, or if there's kind of a tie, which happens often for me, or you're trying to diversify, I think there are times to do it. But for me, take the value and then look to trade the guy, if he has camp hype or blows up in preseason, and go get what you need then.
I'm with you, man. I almost never draft for need. Almost never. The only rare situation I would, if I have 2 prospects who I have in the exact same tier, right? Like, I got a guy I'm comfortable at 103 or I'm comfortable at 104, I will take him. I may look at my team and go like, you know what, I need a running back a little bit more than I need my 4th or 5th quarterback. As much as I like to be the QB whore and just, come pay me. pay me for the quarterbacks. Generally in that situation, I'll go like, I want to compete a little bit more. Maybe I'll take the running back, but they have to be deadlocked as the same tier. I'm not jumping tiers to go like, I got a tier 1 quarterback and I'm going to pass him up because I really need a wide receiver. Like, no, I just take the quarterback. And the thing people never really wrap their heads around is most of these rookie drafts are held in May, June at the latest. You got June, July, August, September to trade for need to build a championship team. You only got 1 draft to draft for value. Like, draft for value, you got 5 months to figure it out on how to move that into what you actually need to help you win.
I'm 100% with Mike. I don't really ever draft for need outside of if it's in the same tier and I need receiver more than running back or something like that, I'll go ahead and lean that way. But it's got to be the same tier. Like, I'm not reaching for a need. And I think one thing to keep in mind going into this year, and I guess, Shane, this is a question I want to ask you, and I also saw JB wants to know about 23 or 24. Here I think is the question that a lot of people will be faced with on these early picks on these teams, because you think about, right, the quarterback landscape, Shane. We've talked about this a lot, and we're going to probably talk about this ad nauseum. But you got essentially 12 guys, and probably people are going to freak out about the Tua concussion protocol again, so who knows what's going to even happen with Tua now. But you have 12 guys at quarterback that feel good, and then you get to just, Kirk Cousins, right? Just but the age and long shots like Trey Lance, what he's going to still be, and you're void. So I think people may, at this point, I think Bijan, as great as he's going to be, there's people that are going to be like, I need a quarterback really bad. Do I just take the quarterback I think in this class ahead of Bijan? And is that crazy for you in Superflex?
It's not crazy. I get it, and I'm kind of like Michael, where I like to QB whore and hoard a bunch of those quarterbacks and trade them. I traded Matt Jones for insane value, for something insane last year because people needed it. It's not crazy. If Bryce Young and CJ Stroud end up on the Detroit Lions, people are going to get excited, right? Like, this is an offense that we know can produce. People are going to get excited. So it's not crazy. I am not going to do it. If I have the one-on-one, I'm going to take Bijan. I'm not sure what it would take to get me off of that. An injury, I guess, ultimately. But it's needy. And I think there is a way to, if you really like that quarterback, want that quarterback, to move down from that 101 to the 103 or 102. And people will be willing to do that, and you'll still get the quarterback that you want ultimately.
Yeah, that's a good point. We got a bunch of questions. So real quick, JB says 23 or 24.
Look, I know 24 is going to keep getting hyped up, right? It's what we do. We hype the next class. I've had this 23 class pegged for years. I've invested a ton into it. The last class I did this with was 2020. It worked out for me really, really well. That class was insane. I got Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, and Cam Akers, and DeAndre Swift, and all these guys, right? So I think 2023 is the group. I think running back is deep. I think wide receiver, the first tier is really good, and the second tier is going to be really big and solid. Quarterback, I think we have two great options. We have another round one pick, and then we have an Anthony Richardson, that could do anything. You actually have, I think, 3 to 4 tight ends that can make an impact. So I think it's deep. I think it's good, and I'm going to be trying to trade my 24 first for a late 23 first. And I hope that people buy into the hype of the 24 class when next year, Drake May disappoints, and we have Xavier Worthy not do anything, and some of these guys are going to fall off, right? And so I think it's don't just look, here's who's going to be the picks, because that doesn't always happen.
I got to ask you, Shane, too. You're as tapped in as just about anybody. We just had Ray on our 4D podcast that we talked a lot about the 23 quarterbacks going forward. Where are you at with these guys? The 23 quarterback class, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. I see in the last one you didn't have A-Rich in the first round. A lot of places do. Where are you at with him specifically? Do you think there's a scenario where he gets this draft capital, this elite draft capital, the ones that we have to pay attention to when he goes in the top 15 to some random team?
I think it's possible. Look, we've seen teams make that upside swing before, and there's really one instance of it really working out. That's Josh Allen. So everyone just wants to plug every quarterback into the next Josh Allen. I think Stroud and Young are exceptional. I think both with the right environment that every quarterback needs will be very good. I think Will Levis is not great. I understand why NFL teams like him. If he goes top 5 like Zach Wilson did, it's going to be a problem. If he goes mid to late first and has some time, I think he can develop into a decent fantasy quarterback. I'll probably have a lot of Will Levis because I just will draft a first-round drafted quarterback in Superflex leagues and trade him.
Right.
I'm not a big Anthony Richardson guy. I mean,
okay.
Look, he is 237, 6'4". I mean, he can run. He might end up being a decent fantasy quarterback. He's one of the worst passers I've ever seen that has this kind of hype. I mean, his completion percentage and only 1 year starting. I mean, I can't find a comp. Like Josh Allen had 2 years, is probably the best. Christian Hackenberg, Kevin O'Connell, Like, these are the quarterbacks that have this kind of passing that Anthony Richardson
Yikes.
had this year. I mean, 4 games under 10 completions. I don't care what offense you're running. Like, I don't care if you're running triple option. Like, you can't do that and be a top NFL quarterback. I can't get on board. Maybe I changed my tune when I go back and watch more. It could happen, but like, you know, I saw him behind Hendon Hooker despite the knee injury. I think Hendon Hooker has a better chance to be a long-term starting NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think you make a good point with Anthony Richardson. This is part of my issue too. Is like, all right, even if you take a guy like Cam Newton, right? Like Cam Newton, at least when he finally played for Auburn, was like a unbelievable quarterback, passer, and player, right? Like Anthony Richardson to me still is what we've seen on the field has not led me to believe there's some upside as far as a passer. Now, I think the pushback, and Ray makes a great point, is like, will people really flock to just the dynamicism that he has, right? The dynamicism of Anthony Richardson is going to be crazy. When he takes a snap, even though he may throw really horribly, he takes off for a 30-yard touchdown run, and people are going to lose their shit, and that's enough in fantasy in a bad landscape to put up points. I have seen him make throws that are exciting, that give me reason for hope, but man, like what he's put together on a resume as a passer is, like you said, like good luck finding even a comp. I mean, he has not completed more than 60% for a season. This year was 54%. He had those 2 games early where it kind of looked good, and then when they played Will Levis, right, from that point on, it's just really scary passes. So I don't know. I have a hard time with Richardson too, but he's one of these polarizing guys that I think will get pushed way up the board because of his rushing upside too.
Let's go, man. I'm excited for this class. Especially the quarterback. We got guys. We had a question in the chat there, Shane. Out of all 4 quarterbacks, who has the highest ceiling to you? Like, in realistic ceiling. I mean, we can all do the whole Madden comps, or, you know, if everything goes well on your NCAA 13 Dynasty, who hits 99? But realistically, who has the highest ceiling for you?
Like, I think it's Bryce Young. And I know some people might say Richardson with the size and the speed and the arm, but Bryce Young has the that just dog mentality of like, he will stand in that pocket, he'll take that hit, and he can run. He's, you know, was a 5-star recruit. He's a top option since high school. We've seen it with Trevor Lawrence. We're seeing it with Justin Fields. When guys are that good in high school, that good in college, they're that good in the NFL. Like, that was always my argument. I loved Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald dominated every single place he went. Why is he not going to dominate in the NFL? I think Bryce Young's that kind of player. We've seen him dominate at every stage. He has the speed to give you a running asset. He might come in 5'10", 5'10 and a half, 190 pounds. That's the downside. But I think ceiling, if this is a guy that can run for 100 yards in multiple games, he can do what Justin Fields is doing, but is a more accurate passer in some aspects. I think there's a big ceiling there.
Man, I do kind of like that. He just kind of has that little bit of ability about him. You know, I have him as my QB3, but I still love the guy. I still love this whole QB class. It's very intriguing, right? You got the Anthony Richardson. What could be? We have Will Levis, who has all the talent in the world, just has made, like you kind of gave out the little bit of a Zach Wilson comp. I can kind of see that shade. Then you got the traditional kind of pocket passers, the dealer, and CJ Stroud, and then you have this, like, man, this could be the next coming of prime Russell Wilson, not 2022 Russell Wilson, right? So with the mobility, the processing, the accuracy, and he does have his own version of arm talent. It may not be the Will Levis or the Anthony Richardson rocket arm, but he can sling the pigskin a little bit.
For sure. And then real quickly, Shane, because I think the answer here is yes. We're talking Anthony Richardson here with T-Rock. Can he run like Cam Newton? That means something. Like, I think he can run like Cam Newton, but what do you think, Shane?
Look, I think he can. My issue with Anthony Richardson and the comp to Cam Newton is I think Cam Newton was a better running back. Like, if you put both these guys at running back, I think Cam Newton had better vision. I think he was much better, getting through a hole. I think Anthony Richardson is big and fast and runs, straight forward. And a lot of people can't tackle that in college. I think in the NFL it's going to be tougher. So, I'm not quite there, but it's close. And I think with some development, he can get there.
That's fair.
That's good, man.
And Cam Newton too, I think people kind of forget with him what really made him different as a runner too was, I mean, in his early part, right, he had a lot of these big rushing games, but where he really thrived that no one's truly replicated to this point like he did. Maybe Hurts was going to, but like the rushing touchdown upside that Cam Newton had was just insane. And that's where his fantasy value a lot of times was baked in. He's going to get north of 10 touchdowns easily a lot. So I don't know that Anthony Richardson on the goal line poses that option either. So that's a good point, I think, with him. Any other final thoughts? Anything you wanted to plug, Shane, before we get up out of here, man? Because here's the problem. We got Mike waking up at 3 a.m. tomorrow.
No, we're good. We're good. I do have one good in-depth question for Shane outside of the sleeper question. All right, so if I just go off your mock draft here, Shane, you rank them for me how you would take them in rookie, Superflex, tight end premium drafts, right? So you got C.J. Stroud at 1 to Houston, Bryce Young at 4 to Detroit, Will Levis at 7 to Indianapolis, and Bijan to 10 to Atlanta. How would you take them in your Superflex drafts if they were today, based on your mock draft that you did?
I would take Bijan, Bryce Young, Stroud, and then I would take Will Levis 4th. So that would be – I think Bryce Young on the Lions, such good upside. I would take him over Stroud, even having Stroud ranked higher for the draft. Like I said, I got to take Bijan 101 still.
I thought it was interesting, too, because you factor in the situations, right? You see a quarterback and he goes to the Detroit with it's just kind of ready-made with Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Chark if he comes back, Swift, Jamal Williams, and that offensive line. Like that, if you were to swap them, right, if Detroit was to do something crazy and take Will Levis instead of Bryce Young, would that factor in just because of that ready-made situation that they have?
Probably not. Like, I think I'd still take. I think I have Stroud and Young as an eval so high above Levis. It's a separate tier for me. So, I'm not a big situation guy, but like we talked about before, if they're in the same tier, then let's look at it. Levis is not in the tier of Young or Stroud. I think almost no matter what, as long as they both get top 10 draft capital, I'll draft them over even Levis going, first overall or going 4th overall to the Lions or wherever that ends up being.
I like it, man. I like it. All right, give me a sleeper. We got to find the next Antonio Gibson. Who you got? Who's your guy so far right now? This is going to change wildly. I mean, we're talking about this at the end of December. The draft ain't till April, the end of April. So we got a long time. We got all the combines, somebody coming out and running a 4.3 40, weighing 220 pounds at the running back position, like Antonio Gibson, where you go, holy shit. Shane, you should look at this guy more. But who's your guy right now? Who's the one that we should kind of be paying attention to? Who popped on tape or who popped during the college season that you were watching?
Look, I feel good about this because last year Christian Watson was my guy at this point. That's worked out pretty well.
My guy. Look at that.
So here's this year's Christian Watson. It's Andre Yacivas, wide receiver out of Princeton. 6'3", 200. He's gonna run at 6'3", a legitimate 4.3 40 time. He's a track athlete, and when I watched him 2 years ago, essentially in 2021, he was just like a track guy on the football field. Like he has NFL athleticism, but I was like, this guy can't play receiver. This past year, he learned how to play receiver. He is wide open all the time. Princeton is not like a great team, but they still made the playoff because he was just clowning guys. I mean, he was absolutely dominant. That's what I want in a small school player, especially one in the Ivy League. That's not, that's certainly not North Dakota State. But look for Andre Yacivas. He's going to the Senior Bowl. He's going to blow up the combine. He's going to be a fast riser. He's not going to go as high as Watson, I think round 3 to round 4. But if I'm looking at the round 3 of rookie drafts and he's sitting there, that's going to be an easy smash for me with the upside. And if, he doesn't do anything, it's fine. I think he's going to be a guy to look for.
Man, I'm glad this is evergreen. I can go back and watch it. The last part of this show, because I got to go type that name out into my rookie ranks somewhere and move them way too high now.
Do it.
That's all I got, man. Shane, Adam, you're on mute there, buddy. But Shane, what do you want to plug, man? This is your time. We're going to give you the floor. Plug whatever you want. It has been incredible having you on, buddy. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been an awesome AMA. We had so many viewers, so many questions we couldn't get to, but I can't not talk 23 NFL draft with you when we get you on.
No, look, I appreciate it. Definitely follow me on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam if you have questions. about the draft or prospects we didn't answer, like tweet them at me. I try to answer everybody. Check out draftcountdown.com. Get all my 7-round mocks and everything, rankings. We also do a podcast. You can look up the Draft Countdown podcast. And fantasy-wise, the Devy Marketplace podcast, where we talk Devy, fantasy football, and values. So check all those out. I appreciate you guys having me, man. It was a real blast.
It's been great. Adam, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, man. T-Rock's out here dunking on me, telling me, good. The camera looks great. I'm out here. Blackout Adam's back out of nowhere. I don't know. I think I blacked out 3 times there. I don't know what's going on. But we appreciate you hopping in, Shane. Make sure you go tap into everything that Shane has. Mike's got to get up early, but we will be back here. Obviously, tap into the trade show Saturday. And as always, Tuesday AMA for Blackout Adam and everyone else here. Same time, same place next week. We are out of this thing. Peace.
Peace.